I'm Colt Hamilton. I've been here at Hamilton Outpost for 27 plus years managing livestock. Got a lot of practical experience there, but barely graduated high school.
I'm Cleo. I graduated from the University of Missouri with a degree in animal science and an emphasis in ruminant nutrition. And I'm here at Hamilton Native Outpost learning how to manage grasslands for the purpose of raising livestock.
We're out here looking at some of the native grass that was grazed and talking about whether it's grazed right and growth points and where growth points are at and how it affects the regrowth of grass. This is a big bluestem clump, and we're up late in middle of August. So we've got some seed heading going on, and I'm not talking about the growth points on these seed stalks. I'm talking about the growth points on these still vegetative leaves that were not going to phase 3 of growth or towards reproduction. These were still just vegetative, capturing sunlight. So the cattle come through here and they bit them off, and we're you know, probably 14 inches tall. And before they grazed them, I would say we was up around, if we straighten the leaf out, 32 inches tall. So they took roughly half the growth off of that. And the growth point that we're talking about, it is the factory that's inside this stem that grows the leaf. And if you eat it too low and you graze, the cow consumes the factory, the plant will take about a week of time to rebuild the factory, then it will start to grow a leaf. If you bite it off above the factory or above the growth point, it'll start growing a leaf instantly. I mean, within hours it'll have growth on it. And Big Blue, you know, is one of the C4 grasses. Conditions are right, we've got soil moisture, it'll grow 2 inches of leaf a day after it's been bit off. So if we look at where this one is at, pick a sample here, you was bit off up here. It probably had growth about that high before they consumed it. The growth point for these leaves, they haven't even consumed the whole leaf. So they could have grazed it a little bit lower down in here and I'd have felt comfortable, but I don't feel comfortable getting down into here or even really about here, which is about 6 inches above the ground. So they could have took off another 6 inches and been somewhat okay, but at some point they're going to eat that factory. And I would say on this plant, it's about in the 6 to 7 inch range is where that growth point would be at, or the factory that's going to make the leaf. So
I guess I'm confused on what do you mean by like growth point? So growth point of like where the leaf is going to come back out, or growth point from where it's going to send out a new one? Because if it's sending out tillers, wouldn't that start at the bottom?
So that's a great way to put the question. This big bluestem is not going to want to send out any more tillers this year. Okay. It's already done as much as it wants to. Now if we come through here and hate it, it would have to. It would actually force the root system to grow new tillers and come back that way. What it wants to do is, if you harvest it high, this stalk will just generate new leaves off the top like a tree would when it greens up in the spring. And the growth point is not way down here. So the determining factor of whether it has to start over from the roots or whether it'll start over from this stalk is probably right up around in the 6 to 7 inches high. So if I take my pocket knife, sometimes these are really easy to find and sometimes I have difficulty finding them, but I know roughly where they should be. So as I kind of break this apart, it looks like a rolled up cigar inside of here. And this down in here, I broke it off at about 4 inches. This down in here is obvious to me that it's below the growth point. Now, as we keep advancing up, if we do it just right, we'll physically see a kind of a wrinkle in the vegetation that is the growth point. But a lot of times, as you see, you just keep taking wrappers off, and sometimes it's hard to find that wrinkle without really sitting down And okay, so I start noticing here that we go from coarse fiber to a lot of little narrow stuff like that. And that is basically leaves that if it hadn't been grazed off, they had in mind for them to start coming out higher up. So your growth point is somewhere around in here, and I'd say we was about 6 inches is where we found that particular one. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with the growth point. If they consume it below that, it might as well just start from the ground.
Okay.
They don't always, sometimes they will regenerate a growth point and start to grow leaves, but it takes a long time. So as we looked at the grass, part of how we got to talking about this is when we looked at the grass, they have consumed for the most part, the most vegetative part and the best quality part of the grass. We don't really even want them to start consuming these seed stalks. Not going to help our rate of gain any. So they could have ate it off lower, but the percent that's left that had quality to it is significantly lower. And as I was telling Cleo, if we had left them another day and got them to eat that down, and they managed to get down to the growth point's pretty nutritious. So they don't mind consuming it. It's just not usually their first bite. But if they do, it'll slow your regrowth down by about 10 to 14 days. So basically this field, the way we grazed it, I'd say 10 to 14 days, it'll be back up this tall just like we never grazed it. If we take it just a little bit lower, I'd say in 10 to 14 days, it'll only be as tall as it is today, because it will take that a lot longer to grow any regrowth back.
And if we left them in here longer and kind of forced them to be less picky and they were eating these seed stalks, then how does that affect how the plant's going to come back? How does that affect how long it will take for the plant to kind of regenerate?
As far as the seed stalks and the time of year we're at, if they were to consume them, they won't come back this year. They wouldn't. This plant, we're in the latter part of August, it probably won't send up any more seed stalks. Now, a month ago, if you consumed these when they was an early boot, that it would retiller and send up some more seed stalks, or at least some later seed stalks. But where we're at this time of the year, this plant has already, this particular one has tried to pollinate and didn't successfully do so. But it's kind of like an annual, once they try to make seed, they're pretty well calling their year over. So he's heading towards fall. He's going to start to turn an orange brown. Whether he successfully makes seed or doesn't, he's going to get less vegetative in like the next 2 weeks. And part of that is time of the year. They're just not, they don't really have a reason anymore. Their root system's charged up. They put their energy into seed growth. There's really nothing left for them to do this year. They're just going to go to bed with a full battery and wake up next spring.
All right.